Good morning, Richard. How are you?
All right. Good morning, Stephen. How you doing? How you doing?
Doing well. So this is our second edition of the Prefecture Go Podcast. So we're going to be talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and how it's applied in our platform, and also some of the other things that go along with AI. But as a recap from our last podcast, you know, I think what we talked about the circular city and the basis of the educational platform, the gaming platform, is based on a circular city and how that affects um, the virtual resonance, and if it was a feature of reality, how that affects people in that manner. But more importantly, how education gets applied to that circular platform. So, today we're looking at talking about artificial intelligence, which is a huge piece to our platform. We have a character that we like to introduce. Her name is K.A.I.L.E. And what does K.A.I.L.E. stand for, Richard?
It's our fictitious character for our game platform. Stands for Kinetic, Artificial Intelligent Learning Environment. It's our fictitious character on our game platform.
And K.A.I.L.E. It is the governess of the education platform, if you will, in a virtual sense. Her job is to maintain all the systems and service to our city. She also is where you find the information you need in the library and the history of created as part of Prefecture. So I think I captured that correctly.
Yes.
So part of our topic here bridges on some things that people get very nervous about. I know that AI is something that's really important to our current world. I mean, we have Alexa, we have Siri as a piece where you can talk to and you get answers. Google does some of those pieces as when you talk to it as a browser on your phone as well. And I think that mainstream media and mainstream entertainment have put some very interesting spins on how artificial intelligence works. We can go way back, and I like movie references. I know that Richard likes movie references as well. And so, for the older viewers, we have HAL from 2001 Space Odyssey. From some of our newer type, younger audience, there's an entire plethora of different AI type of governing models. Those that watch Westworld, have seen how that piece works. And it always seems, for some reason, the AI does naughty things. Mm-hmm. It always is a bad situation. And I don't necessarily think that artificial intelligence can be a bad situation. So I think in some of our conversations, Richard, we've had, we talked about how artificial intelligence is either cognizant or non-cognizant, and I go to an example. I had recently was at Walmart scanning some products across the self-scan line, and they alerted that I was shoplifting when I accidentally ran my right hand along with my left hand across in front of the scanner because I was going too fast, and it thought that I had put an extra item in my cart, which wasn't the case. And someone had come over and said that happens all the time. So there are things where AI is very helpful at trying to, remediate challenges that get missed by humans. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that we see and do on a regular basis now that include AI, and we don't even know it. And so, what is your thoughts on that?
As far as movies go, it would be they have the artistic license to make it a tragedy because it's more entertaining. So I understand that part, because mainly if you just had a movie with just you and your Alexa or your Siri, it'd be a pretty boring movie. So that's why they do that kind of thing. But no, I think that the problem is that with AI, it's what you put in the AI that comes out of it. So so I wouldn't worry too much about that on that part. But I do want to preface that we're not experts on AI technology wise. We're on the design and gaming side. So that's why we need you guys. That's why we're doing this podcast, to get the educational people and the experts to tell us, suggestions, questions, kind of help us out here, where, because we want to bring the kind of our fictitious character, what parts are possible for education. So,
Right. I mean, and that actually is a very important thing. All of our podcasts are designed around, we don't know. We're not the experts of all these parts, which is a really important piece. And we do need your help. We need to know what you think. We always need to know what your thoughts are on our podcast. The information is being provided. And also, what you might want as the next topic. So.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why we went, our game platform started with the circular sustainable city is that's the start. And in order to run it, you need AI. So that's why we developed the character K.A.I.L.E to run it. So that'll be the next step. And then during our next podcast, we want your suggestions on, there's different directions we can go on from there. But that's just the foundation of what we're doing right now to teach AI. And the other part is part of the thing with K.A.I.L.E, if you go on our website and look at all of our character bios, but especially K.A.I.L.E, it's based on psychometric tests of the populace of this fictitious story, and whatever they input into the AI, the AI for the city provides for it. So it's a very individualistic approach as far as AI goes. And this circular city may have a different AI than another circular city. So that's why it's individualized for that populace or that community. So that's what kind of we loosely based the character on that. So it really can't take over because it can only do what the populace in there, what the populace does for that, inputs in that community. So it's community based kind of thing.
Yeah, it's in its own silo, if you will. That's what you're saying. It doesn't see the other. In our storyline, K.A.I.L.E can't see another type of governance, artificial intelligence of another prefecture or a parish or any of those. So having it self-contained can be a very positive thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think teaching, because we're trying to teach from an individual standpoint, so we want instead of a top-down teaching where everybody has to do everything, we want to do it individually. So that I think that if you learn, like we talked last week with our guest Donna, like a student to solution approach. So this way, I think this way it can be done this way, where the individual is very important, and that individual with other individuals in the community develops this, the AI they want, kind of thing.
Yeah, the neat thing about the base programming that we're working on, that is a real item, is as you go through and you play our first game, it helps figure out what you like. Now I know most people know what they like, and so that will come up, flush up to the top. But career-wise or things they might be interested in, it helps understand and give a choice on where that you might be the most successful, and allows you to go through a platform of education that is designed and wrapped around that experience. And of course, we like to emphasize we're using gamification to help do the learning. So the education is applied to to a game and allows you to play games, video games, to help learn a certain skill set or a certain career path. So our artificial intelligence, which is, we dub K.A.I.L.E as well, but she's a character in the game, allows us to help guide the student or the gamer through their career process and to the end. And that same artificial intelligence helps us gather data on what types of people fit in the certain types of companies, so that we can bring certain corporations and companies that are looking for people that could be programmers or that are into vertical farming or solar or whatever career path that we come along and have as far as a program. But when we look at it from a story perspective, right? K.A.I.L.E's got is I wouldn't say she's the boss, but she's sort of the boss, for guidance. And that's the word I like using, guidance. She's not telling you to do something. She's giving you information so you can make choices on how to do things. I think it's the best way to place that.
Uh-huh. Yes.
So it's sort of an in and out approach, I think, Richard, right? Where,
Yep.
People put information in from what they do and how they do it, and she evaluates it and then allows to give proper guidance on how to do certain tasks or topics, or, what's the best approach to do things.
Mm-hmm. It's customizable, because like the example I use, if you like to play a certain sport, or if you're a vegan, or certain things you like, criteria you like in the fictitious story, it gets input in the system, and it knows, it creates an algorithm and says, okay, this is what we need to provide for this 100 or 1,000 people. And it does it efficiently, and it outputs what's inputted, kind of thing. So yeah, it's very customizable. And yeah, I think is it a possibility? But like I said, this is basically the story, and we're trying to go from virtual to reality, seeing if it's possible. So yeah.
It's an excellent concept.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we wanted to go into artificial intelligence as a topic with how it learns, think about some of the things that we have currently, that learn. I mean, Siri's supposed to learn your dialect. That's who I use, and she is supposed to understand some of my nuances. Now, am I a believer on that? Completely? Not really. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
not that I spend time tricking her, but I find more times that I have to recorrect what's being heard and how it's being heard, and find it faster for that specific platform to understand. Now, I don't have a lot of experience with Alexa, but my kids have told me that they have had the same challenges with Alexa in some cases. And I've seen some pretty funny videos out there of some, bloopers, if you will, of how Alexa's messed up, what was asked and how it was provided. So, it's interesting, because in order for you to have an artificial intelligence that's listening, you need to make sure they're listening very well, or understand the speech patterns that each person has, or their abilities. So, I mean, in the game, it's not really looking at speech, it's looking at activities and actions, or direct written questions at the moment, where, hey, where do I, how do I find this information? And it provides information to you, sort of a search engine kind of piece. But I think that's something, maybe not quite in our platform, but in other platforms in AI, that needs to be resolved for us to have a little more complete and succinct experience, where it's not frustrating. And I think that that's the thing, is the reality is that a lot of people find the current artificial intelligence models to be a little frustrating in how it provides certain things versus it being always the full help that you think it should be.
Yeah, and I think we're getting there because the processors are getting smaller, and I think we're getting there. So, and we, like I said, we have to do it. We have to do it smartly, and you know, I, yeah, there are problems with it, but they usually get resolved. I think, yeah,
Yeah,
especially.
it's gotten better. I'll agree
Mhm.
with that.
Yeah.
Definitely has gotten better in some ways in that. But I also, why I started the conversation, with, mainstream media and or movie makers
Mhm.
like to, put a pin on the donkey, if you will, how this is supposed to work. That doesn't mean that's really how it works.
Mhm.
It's a broken version of the utopia as painted by the movie makers,
Mhm.
when it is working well. So, I think that um, people need to have a different expectation of how AI should function or will function versus how it's portrayed in these, glorified examples.
Mhm. And I think we focus on when things don't work. Of course, we highlight on we're biased when we focus on the darn, it's not working. But when it does work, you take it for granted, and that's
Hmm.
what. Yeah. So yeah, I think that, and I think that utopia thing is we're not striving for utopia, but I can't remember a futurist was talking about if you strive as you strive for utopia, there's that part in between that you take for granted that you're stepping towards better technology. When things work, you don't you're like
Hmm.
things are working, so you don't you kind of take it for granted that you know we're streaming this podcast live over the internet. We couldn't do this 5 years ago, 10 years ago, so as well, so yeah.
It wasn't available to the mass people like ourselves, where
Mhm.
you had to use a network to actually do this type of, you know,
Mhm.
activity. So
Yeah.
I think that the good thing about a futuristic utopian type of model is it does paint a picture,
Mhm.
to provide a visualization of where we might want to go, you
Mhm.
know, as far as what is the expectations of good. But I think you're absolutely right. When things work correctly, we certainly definitely take it for granted. You
Mhm.
know, AI is used to drive your car now.
Mhm.
When it doesn't work and it causes a car crash, it's no different than we don't perform well as humans and we carry a car crash. But, you know, we have an expectation that it's flawless.
Mhm.
You know, it's not flawless. It was created by an entity that is flawed, ourselves, and therefore it has things that can come up that are challenges that it can't understand or do. So, like I said, it's improves over time.
Mhm. Yeah. And the question we have for the audience is what is your view on AI? Are you want to take like a little poll or whatever? We uh, comment to us on do you see a lot of benefits? Are you hopeful? Are you scared? We want to know your concerns so we can you know learn more about it. Like I said, we're trying to like I said, we're on the education design side, but we need more of that technology realistic. So we're trying to teach that gap from possibilities to kind of to reality. So we need your help to you know help us know more. So we need educators, technologists, and the young folks out there. We need your help. What do you think about AI and autonomous vehicles, smart grids, kind of thing, the Internet of Things? What is your you know what do you hope? Are you hopeful? Are you scared? Or let us know, kind of thing, so we can we can know how to teach and what to put in our game. So.
To speak to that, a lot of these are high level conversations that, we're having, we can dig deep into something specific, where folks may or may not know that it's becoming a part of AI, but flying is becoming very specific to AI to help with traffic control, but also to help with now the new one that I read that's a possibility could be taking off and landings. You know,
Mhm.
I certainly fly my fair, miles in a year, and I don't know necessarily how I feel about something that has artificial intelligence taking off and landing the plane. I understand once you're up there, that's fine. Autopilot's a great thing, and it takes a lot of pressure off a pilot for a long ride. That's 2 hours, an hour, 5 hours, 8 hours, whatever the speed of. But like the two most critical parts of that whole thing,
Mhm.
we're putting artificial intelligence to it. Now, does that mean that's not a possibility? Of course, it is a possibility. It's, I think, more of a comfort zone for
Mhm.
people than it is how that actually functions. I think it's like self-driving car. Some people think that it's, well, that's a great thing. I can do this and this and this. I
Mhm.
can sit there and read. I don't have to be, exhausted. If I'm a little tired, I don't have to worry about falling asleep at the wheel. That's great positives. But then there's folks that are, they need that control. They don't want to let go of that control. They feel that by doing that, they're now losing control of their situation. So do you think, do you, Richard, think, and the audience, do you think that AI removes the control that you to a point where you have some trepidation about it?
Well, I'm kind of I'm a contrarian by nature, so I'm looking at both sides. Being a Gen X generation, I seen us go from analog to digital, and like I said, I'm a digital nerd on one side. I like the traditional, the old school stuff. So I'm like, I think it needs to be for my generation. It needs to be if you're going to take a technology, if you're going to develop a technology, if you're going to take a technology away, you have to develop something that's sustainable. Um, it has to be replaced organically, and that's what part of what we're doing. We want to teach educational wise. You can't just get rid of traditional cars until you make electric cars more sustainable and affordable and efficient and have enough fuel stations and stuff before you can get rid of gas cars, kind of thing.
Mm,
Example, you can't get rid of the the power grids because you know you can't replace it with solar and wind's only 2%. I heard last stats. You can't replace it until you make that more sustainable and better and cheaper and
mm.
like that. So yeah, so I'm kind of like in between where yeah. And then like I said, my whole joke is that if I don't have to ever drive again in traffic, that's great. But I do like driving a car, so why not have a VR simulator or a theme park where I could just drive a drive a NASCAR or drag racer or you know to get that out of my system that I want to drive, I can do that. But if I'm driving in traffic, why would I want to drive? I'd get on an autonomous vehicle and sit back and relax. So
Yeah, I like to drive too. I
yeah,
mean,
I love.
yeah, I like the hit the country, like the windy country roads. Here in New York, I like to drive my truck around on the country roads and always take the interstate. It's maybe 5 minutes more, but it's relaxing. I have the windows open and feel the I won't say thrill because you're not going fast enough to have the thrill, but thrill of like going around the corners and stuff instead of having these nice, very well maintained straight paths that go from point A to point B. And there's something to be said about that activity. I don't know if I'd wanted to go to a theme park to regain an activity I've spent the last 25 years doing on my own. You
Mhm,
know, it's and so like
mhm,
someone that's hugely in tech, which I am, and love seeing progress and stuff, there's certain parts of the human experience that's really, you know, really interesting, that you really just want to maintain. There's something to be said about, almost everyone drives an, automatic transmission car. I mean, I know that's not AI, but
Mhm.
there's something to be said about downshifting on, a block 8 and, hauling it down around a corner. It's thrilling. If you know how to do that, you find a lot of happiness in that experience.
Mhm.
But, you know, there's a point where certain things, progress removes certain things that we like to do in the older days, if you want to call them that. And you don't have that experience to really go back to, except for when you did it then.
Mhm.
So it's a little bit of it's an ebb and flow in emotion as we all move forward, and we are moving forward at a tremendous rate, pace, especially post pandemic. The changes I've seen technological wise are just exponentially hard to keep up with,
Mhm.
in the tech space in many ways, so.
Yeah, because I was thinking I had my midlife crisis early because for like 5 years I owned a Monte Carlo SS, and that was always my dream car. It was like 360 horsepower, and I got to drive it for 4 years, and then I realized uh, I kind of grew that, needing to drive fast and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so yeah, would a simulator replace that feeling at that time? No, probably not, or maybe I don't know. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah. If you could replace that feeling, that emotion of me, yeah, needing that. Yeah.
Perhaps. I
Yeah.
guess that we'll
Perhaps.
find
Yeah.
out when we get there, right?
Yeah. When they get that, yeah. When they get that down to it, where I could just put on VR and have that feeling also.
Mm.
Mhm.
But the experience, like back to the AI piece and VR specifically, VR has been a really neat experience for many people that have it, or like augmented VR as well. I mean, I went to a Van Gogh exhibit at the museum. I don't know if you went to that, but that was, in the St. Petersburg Museum.
Okay.
And if anyone catches it someplace else, I would highly recommend going. But it was just taking something that was flat and it was 3D because it was a painting, but 2D, on the wall, and turning into this huge experience by adding audio and different pieces, and they unlayered some of the paintings so that you could have movement in the pictures. It was a really great, very, very well done museum piece. And, you know, I know AI is not part of that in theory,
Mhm.
but it bridges on the gap of having replacements for experiences we have currently as manual type activities,
Mhm.
and that are thrilling, that do bring us joy, that bring us some level of like closure in our work in our lives, and saying, hey, what does virtual reality kind of step into helping supplement some of those things? um, because I think the question we haven't asked yet in this session is, can artificial intelligence really improve our well-being overall?
Mhm.
If we remove some of these pieces of saying, well, I'm going to miss the old times, right? Can
Mhm.
artificial intelligence really improve our experience overall? Or is it going to cause it to be more complicated in some ways?
Mhm. Well, part of that part of that sentence you said our time, but our time is different from Gen Z and Generation Alpha that's coming up. So they'll have a different experience because they grew up with technology the whole time.
Hmm.
So their experience will be different. Never having to deal with the analog time that you and me went through. So um, I'm not sure about that, but we'll leave that for the audience. I think I'm still, it's a good question.
I think that I think you're a fair assessment of that. I mean, I'll pick on my grandfather. He grew up in a house with one light bulb. That's
Mhm.
hard to fathom to
Wow.
everybody here that has multiple light bulbs and treats a light bulb with, or an LED light bulb with, like, no respect whatsoever. We leave them on all the time, and that was a different era.
Mhm.
But like
Um,
in an aspect of he's evolving through technology, it was all positive
mhm.
because you go from having one light bulb to multiple light bulbs. You go from having to go to the pump and go to the one running water. These are serious topics. This was born 1902, by the way.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
when we look at let's pick on my youngest son, he at age 3 knows how to use an iPad very well. You
Mhm.
know, some of us that age 43 struggle with some of those things. I
Mhm.
see people constantly asking their children, "Hey, how do I use this device?" And the kids know more about it than they do, maybe because they spend more time on them than they do. But also, you're right. I think, we're uniquely in a middle spot between when technology did not exist and digital technology did not exist and does exist. Um, I think the first computer was officially built either in the late 60s or early 70s, and I was born in 78. So, I got to see some of the first desktop PCs.
Mhm.
And so to me, it was a tool more than an assistant or part of life. You used it instead of a typewriter. And I'm definitely dating myself in this conversation now,
Mhm.
but I think that I definitely do not want to use a typewriter anymore. And the word processor now, or the supercomputer or the computer
Mhm.
or the iPhone or iPad is way more efficient at doing that. I do not miss a typewriter. I have one for decoration.
Oh, wow.
So I think there's certain things that depends on what that is, right?
Mhm.
Um, the car is a different thing, it can become thrilling, where a typewriter is not thrilling unless
Mhm.
you really, really like a typewriter.
Yeah. Mhm. And the other part of to change the subject a little bit, the other part of AI that we didn't talk about is that the jobs that's going to replace. They said that drivers, farming is going to change because you don't need many hands in farming,
Hmm.
especially if it goes to hydroponics and vertical farming. That's going to take jobs away. And like you were just talking about the typewriter, that's what it reminded me of is printing and the printing press. And do we even need to write anymore? That would be the question. If everything like physically writing and have print paper stuff. Will this not exist in 5 years or 10 years because of AI?
Hmm.
That's the question. Those jobs, yeah.
I think that there's a lot of jobs that can be, I don't want to use the word replaced.
Hmm.
I can't name the company or the person, but I have a friend that works for a factory,
Hmm.
and in his factory, he is considered, I believe, a Tech 3. So back in the day, the factory workers, they would go and they would put the product in the machine, the base product, if it's a jar or a roll of paper or tissue or whatever that was, and then the machine would just fill it and then they would cap it, and then they would put the label, they would put the label on it. I have a machine to put the label on now, and that was the way the workers worked. um, Same person that would do some of those manual things now is considered a Tech 3, and all of his job, and most of the people that work that line's job, is to maintain the machine. It's not to do the physical manufacturing process. Robots follow little lines on the floor. They bring the things to, the raw material to the machine when it's time. So if it's a roll of paper, as an example, the robot brings it. If someone walks on that line in the front of the robot, the robot stops automatically to protect, for safety. So safety has been greatly improved. Production has been greatly improved. But to your point, and you were using farming as an example, I remember, and the same thing with this, you used to have like maybe 100 people on that line or running it for 24 hours, in different shifts. You have a lesser capacity as those types of people. The
Hmm.
people that run that are the ones willing to learn and to become more educated or trained to be able to maintain the machine in the process versus just being laborers that put A and B together, you know? We see a lot of that replacement with artificial intelligence and machines, like in farming, as you're an example. There are a lot of people who go out and help pick, strawberries and tomatoes and fruits and all kinds of things because, it's good. Now we have machines that come along and just shake the tree. Fruit comes down into like a big net and off it goes into the basket. But you still need farming people to like inspect stuff and make sure that everything's going well. So I don't necessarily know if it's going to replace jobs. I think it's going to cause us to adapt as people, to learn a different style trade that's tech based.
Yeah, and I guess the word I see, I guess because the media tries to scare, I guess they're using replace, but I guess the better word is reduce. It will reduce and change the job fields because they said by I think it was either 2025 or 2027, 65% of the jobs will be brand new jobs that don't exist right now.
Yeah.
So there'll be a transfer of that, and that'll be the largest, I guess, since we went from farming to industrial. That'll be the largest change in a line. So so that's where we want to come in as an education platform. Is what are those jobs, and those jobs are going to be created by the youngsters of the day. So that's what we want to be right in the middle there. What are these new jobs? We want to help develop the next the next Elon Musk or the next Richard Branson of the future to solve to solve our problems, our technological problems and our environmental problems for the future, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think.
So that's
you hit it on the head there. I was thinking it as well. Social media, like we'll pick on social media. Social media was nothing no one ever thought about as a position or a job. A social media manager is a job that was just recently created in the last like 10 years, right? There's so many unknowns in the job market, and more importantly, how do you teach those things? Because now we're starting to get into specialized training for very specific types of roles, and I think that how people go about going and putting things together in a job market is going to change from the education part. I mean, I can pick on myself. My degree is graphic design. But the graphic artist used to do a lot of the stuff inside the advertising marketing agency, as an example. Now there's a person who designs the front end. There's a person that designs the back end of the software. There's a person that does the software program. There's 7 programmers on the software package to make the thing work. Then you have a project manager, and all of a sudden one thing ends up with like 10 positions to create it. When in the back, not so long ago, 15 years ago, it was one person did all that. And now you have these specialized things because each specialty has its own practice. You're starting to see it in farming. You're starting to see it in the tech space. Definitely. You see it in the medical fields. Definitely. Because the faster we grow as a race, the more information is being transferred. You can only have so much time to be focused on one specific thing. So specialization has occurred. And so the more we go forward, the more we have specialized places. That means that those jobs and those positions now become available. But how do you teach it? And I think that's potentially, possibly, maybe where our platform is going to be a great benefit on how, people rethink and retool students of tomorrow. I don't think it's going to be a classroom learning environment anymore. I think it's going to become more hands-on than it was, almost going back to a trade school kind of mentality, but in your specialized kind of field.
Yes, and I think freelance. We want to. We're trying to replace the word career, because I think that word career is going to be changed to project based instead of career based.
Mhm.
Because they said that some futurists say that the next generation is going to be working more like 1099-ish jobs or freelance contract jobs, as opposed to working for one company for 20 years or 40 years and retire. They're just going to be actually just solving problems for that company and then moving on to that next project, through that. So, yeah.
No,
So
I,
we,
I
like I said, we
definitely,
want. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. We want to fill that in between. How do you keep if you do real time training, you can train that person for the next project, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I already starting to see that.
Mhm.
And I think our government is definitely aligning that from, tax and payroll kind of perspective as well, as we're seeing some changes in that. But I think that's is a high probability that would be the direction, that we might head. I mean, all these conversations and everything we're talking about is fueled by artificial intelligence, and it's fueled by machine learning or computers learning patterns and information and helping, hopefully helping us always assist in becoming a better race and more efficient race, more, sustainable race, and not as wasteful as we've been in the last, about 4 decades.
Yeah.
But hey, we want to hear what we want to hear what you think. Please comment on our website, comment on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit that like button, make sure you subscribe so you can see the next time that we throw up another live feed. We'll be broadcasting here in two or 3 weeks. Check on our website to see when our next live feed is, and we'll see you from there.
Yes, we need novice and beginners and people who are interested in furthering our game story. So we need you. Yeah.
Thank you for watching our podcast. Subscribe to our channel. Let us know what you think and what you would like us to talk about next. Don't forget to check out our website at prefectureisp.com.